Welcome back to another episode of Creator Codes. I am so blessed and so honored that you are here with me today on this very potent episode. And little secret, it's not really a secret, but I already recorded this episode and I already put it out there. And it was about an hour long, and I realized how many tangents I went on and how watered down the information was because of how much information I added in that did not need to be in there, that could have just stayed in my journal. So, lesson learned, the spiritual ego was strong. Yesterday, when I was trying to record, trying to make some points in certain ways and sharing things that, again, just were not necessary. So, today it's going to be a little different. It's going to be more concise so you can actually focus, because I will be more focused today on giving you more direct information about the spiritual ego, because this is very important. I'm not trying to show up in this episode to literally be in my spiritual ego. It felt like that's what it was yesterday. But it was good to get through, and it was good to get it out of my system. But today, again, more concise, more clear, and I thank you again for being with me today. Let's get into it before I go off on tangents. I promise I won't. But it's just really interesting because as a teacher and as a guide, this might be something that you can relate to. When I am out there helping people and sharing stuff, sharing knowledge and wisdom, if I'm not fully embodied in it, I will be shown that pretty much immediately. Even if it's 1 or 2% of my being is not fully embodied in it, it's going to be very clear that there's some more work to do, which is very common and very okay. Because if you're here on earth and you're pretending to be fully ascended and just you've released the ego for good, that's just not true. Like, as long as you're human, you have an ego, and that's okay. It's just a matter of your relationship with it. And when we go down the spiritual path, the spiritual ego can really take over. So what is the spiritual ego? It's just so, like, this feels so important to talk about because it's very relevant in my life and a lot of the things I see, especially on social media. So the spiritual ego is when our awakening becomes another identity to cling onto. When we start to feel superior because we are more conscious or more healed than others. It is very, very sneaky. It wears the clothes of enlightenment. And by the way, I'm wearing a sweatshirt that says God on it. The irony. Okay. So it wears the clothes of enlightenment, but it runs on fear and separation. And there's the hummingbird again. I'm so blessed and honored to have you back here, hummingbird. Yesterday it was here when I was recording that hour-long episode. So that's a really great sign that it's back today for this episode. It's like, you're going to talk clearer today, Cass. Okay. So yes, the spiritual ego, when I read that definition, when I looked it up, I was like, ChatGPT, tell me what a spiritual ego is. Like, what is the definition that you can gather from the ethers, the internet? And when I read that, I was like, oh shit. Yeah, that's definitely been present in my life. So how does the spiritual ego show up? Let's go over these ways, and then we're going to talk about how you know you're in your spiritual ego, and a couple of my personal reflections, and then how to come back to love and the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Okay, so the way it shows up, 1, needing to always be right. Hand up if you've ever felt like you needed to be right. I cannot be the only one. Number 2 is seeing others as less awake or still asleep. I see so many memes, and I related to them hard when I first awakened, because it was like, it almost is this immediate, like, I can see more clearly than others can because so many people are sleeping and they're sheep, and that does not make us any better. We're like literally living in judgment, which is the opposite of love. And ultimately, if we are an ascended master, we would literally be in unconditional love, no matter what anyone believes or doesn't know or does know. Okay. So seeing others as less awake or still asleep is number 2. Number 3 is over identifying with being a healer, a guide, or a chosen one. I've actually had people message me telling me they are the chosen one. They are a chosen one. They are a part of the 144,000. And, you know, the thing is about love, true love, and true light is it doesn't do any proving. It doesn't have to prove anything because it just emanates from you. You don't have to say, hey, I'm a chosen one. I'm a part of the 144,000. Now I'm trying to say this without judgment towards these people. That's the thing. I'm like, how do I talk about this without also being judgmental? And again, I'm like really trying not to be. I'm just showing examples because I've done this before. I've thought this before. And maybe when people say this to me and I'm like, eye roll, kind of judging, it's because there's something in me that I'm judging or something in me that's actually resonating with being a chosen one, you know? And so you can only see in others what you hold in yourself, the good, bad, and the ugly. And so when I roll my eyes at these people, maybe it's because there's something in me that also feels that way, that I'm also judging about myself. And that's why Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, is someone to really learn from, because he literally did not have judgment towards himself or others, which allowed him to be in the pure state of God, of unconditional love. So, do you over-identify with being a healer, a guide, or a chosen one? I've been there and I've done that, and we'll talk about some examples of my life soon. Number 4 is hiding behind love and light when you're actually hurt or triggered. Just because you have gone through a spiritual awakening doesn't mean you can't go through lessons again. Because as long as we are here on earth, we are learning, we are growing, we are ascending. And if we're pretending that we are love and light, and I'm fine because I've risen above and it does not affect me, that's a very different frequency than actually allowing when you're hurt, you feel it. You feel the trigger and you learn from that. That actually expands your light more by being honest with yourself and being okay with your humanity. Very, very important. And then number 5 is using spiritual language to cover up real emotional needs. So that could, again, kind of looking down on people and saying certain things in a certain way that will just kind of spiritually bypass whatever it is that you really need emotionally. Maybe it's a good cry. And maybe you're just kind of using certain language to mask what it is that you're feeling because you don't want to be seen as less than a guide or a healer, again, with that over-identification. And therefore, your emotional needs are not being met. Therefore, you're not actually growing and ascending as you claim to be doing. So, and I'm not saying you, I'm saying us, like I'm a part of this too, okay? So again, like how you know you're in your spiritual ego this is a big one for me. When you feel bitter that people just don't get it. You feel frustrated that others cannot meet you where you are, and that frustration masks a need to be understood or validated, which, as we know, is ego. But when you put yourself on that pedestal of like, they don't understand it, they're not as enlightened, you actually are creating the separation that is something that enlightened people, right, don't actually want, but we're perpetuating the things that we don't actually want because of this mask that this frustration is putting on of, you know, just really needing to be seen and validated. And that's okay. Like, that's the thing. That's why I love parts work, because when you have a part of you that maybe it's your inner child and just wants to be understood and validated by a parent. This is an example for my mom and I. COVID times, she just didn't get it in my mind. She didn't get it. She didn't understand. And I was so frustrated. And that I like so frustrated. And the anger, as we know, like emotions too, like anger is usually at the top of something that is like it's covering up more of like a sadness, right? And so for me, I was so angry, but really underneath it all, I was just sad that my mom was not understanding me and validating me as far as all of the research and things that I learned. And I just like really stood tall in. But I used that knowledge in a way where I kind of shunned her. So, of course, I pushed her away from me, from not even wanting to understand me, because I just kept that mask of frustration on instead of just being like, I'm hurt that we're not as connected as we used to be. You know, I'm feeling sad that like, and maybe this is a pattern from childhood that like I didn't feel understood as a child. So now this is coming up here for me to transcend all the spiritual ego language, for me to learn this lesson and actually move through it versus continuing it into later years. But anyways, so yeah, that is the first one, is feeling bitter when people don't get it. The next one is you feel like the only one who sees clearly. And so this could actually isolate you and separate you. And there's like a feeling of loneliness, which could be disguised as being superior than others. So a lot of times when we are on the spiritual journey and we do awaken, there are people that we lose from our lives because people grow apart, and that's okay. But if we see ourselves as the only one that sees clearly and no one else gets it, and we can't, basically judging someone else for not being able to see things clearly, just like the first one where you feel bitter, you're disguising the isolation as superiority, as being superior, as being above others. And so that's a very slippery slope that goes with the first one of feeling bitter when people don't get it. The next one is clinging to your spiritual identity for safety. So if you stopped sharing content or posting about spirituality, who would you be? Right? And this is something that I've really reflected on. And people love, here's my example. People love my readings, my tarot readings. And I really honestly was curious in the beginning, and I just tried it out, and turns out I was really good at it naturally. I teach now a tarot course and intuition, and it just happened so naturally where I didn't even have to like learn how to read tarot. I picked it up so fast, and it just felt like a gift of mine, which was great. So I started sharing, and it's been almost 2 years at this point, I believe, of sharing readings online for free, these reels and everything. And after a while, it was like, okay, I can easily get 1,000 likes on one post. And I see other people, they're getting 50 likes. I'm like, wow, what does that do to my ego? Seeing that I have 20,000 plus followers, that word alone, followers, insinuates that I am leading all of these people that have chosen to follow me. And that gets in your head. That gets into the ego of needing to uphold this certain personality, the certain frequency of posting these readings for people to follow me and to like and to comment. So that was something that I really clung to as far as my identity went. But now that it feels like it's breaking. I've taken about, almost a week now from posting, just because that's the thing, is like over time, it kind of was like a habit. And it was just a habitual thing where I saw every day my account was growing every single day. So I could expect to be at a certain number by a certain point. So like, I need to keep posting. Is that really to help? Like, am I posting really to help people, or am I helping just to have more validation? You know? So that's an example from my life. Another one is rejecting normal human feelings, is what we talked about. And also feeling like, you're judging your own sadness, you're judging your own anger, and you're judging your own confusion as being low vibrational. But again, that's not true, because we are humans. And as long as we are human, we are meant to experience the whole spectrum of emotions and feelings, and not just love and light, rainbows and butterflies. I've transcended darkness and whatever it is. But I've realized so much. And that's why, like, a lot of times when people talk about manifestation and getting into a certain vibration and holding that vibration, it's true. But there's a lot of information that will make you feel like, I cannot feel angry, I cannot feel sad, otherwise I'm not going to get what I want. But it's actually the opposite, because the highest vibrational frequency is authenticity, is actually living authentically. A lot of people think it's love, which love comes next after authenticity, because if you are loving but you're not authentic, like if you're in a partnership, right, and you love that person so much, they love you so much, but both of you are wearing masks and you're not being your authentic selves, that's actually not a very high vibration. It's actually quite low, because there's pretending. There's fear underneath that of not being loved for who you are, so you decide not to be. That's why the highest vibrational frequency, I feel like I'm saying the same thing. The highest vibration is authenticity. When you are authentically yourself and you find someone who loves you for that, that will amplify that vibration, because love is an amplifier. But love without authenticity is not true love. So instead of rejecting your normal human feelings and feeling like you're above them, actually feeling them and allowing yourself to be angry. Have you ever heard of sacred rage? That will actually cause your vibration to raise, because you're allowing yourself to actually feel what is true. And that is the highest vibration. The next one is you are triggered by being misunderstood. And instead of softening, you want to prove your point through higher truth. Instead of softening, you want to prove your point through higher truth. And so anytime we are triggered, as we know, it's an opportunity for us to grow. It's an opportunity for us to see where we are buying into fear. And it's okay to be misunderstood, because again, Jesus Christ is someone, if someone looked at him and was like, you're a fake, he would be like, I love you. He's not like, oh my God, I'm so scared to be myself because people will misunderstand me. He lives so authentically in his truth, which is the highest light and love of purity, that even people that misunderstand him do not faze him. So how can we learn from Jesus, our homeboy? And I just want to emphasize the point that when you try to prove your point, love has nothing to prove. Love has nothing to prove, only the ego does. And that's oftentimes what happens when we get on the spiritual high horse, is we're out there proving that we are awakened, when in reality, our love and light can speak for itself if it is truly authentic. But if we're trying to prove that we are awakened, we are one of the 144,000, and we have to say it and claim it and just like preach it out there and let everyone know. Like I said, I get messages from people saying, I'm the chosen one. I'm a part of the 144,000. I'm at the point now where I'm not going to look at you different. I'm not going to look at you different. If you're trying to prove that you're a part of this special group of people, if you're trying to prove it to me, that is telling me like, interesting. It's like a red flag in my mind when I witness it. And that could say things about me too. I'm not nearly as triggered by that as I used to be because, again, Jesus is our homeboy and I've been learning from him. So when we witness people trying to prove things about themselves, we can witness it as a pure projection and not take it as something like not, when we are triggered by being misunderstood, this is something that we can actually respond in a way where we soften into what it is that actually is underneath the surface, instead of being like, they just don't understand because they're not as ascended as me. Okay. And the last one here is you use language like they're not ready for me. But it's coming from ego and not discernment. And that has happened just in my world as far as dating goes as well. Ooh, they can't handle me. They're not ready for me. And there's a difference between judgment and discernment. And I mean, judgment to a certain point, as the cats are licking each other behind me if you're watching the video. So when you use discernment and you actually see, like when it comes to dating, that intuition, honestly, intuition and discernment is so important to use, but there's a difference between that and just simply judging someone for being below you. Spiritual ego doesn't mean you're fake. It just means there's still a part of you that's trying to stay safe by being significant. Let me say that again. Spiritual ego doesn't mean you're fake. It just means there's still a part of you that's trying to stay safe by being significant. So, a couple examples for me. I already explained my social media example of like craving to be seen and to have like the likes. It was mostly like the likes and the comments, because it really is, it's like you train your dopamine levels to be attached to your social media. And so when I post a video, I can easily get that hit. And so that really made me lately be like, what am I doing this for? And I'm not saying it's 100% out of ego that I'm posting, but we can't lie to ourselves, because when we're on social media, we are human, and a part of us does want to be seen. A part of us does want to be praised or appreciated and get likes and comments. But how much do we let that define how we're creating? Are we creating from fear, or are we creating from love? And that's why I took a slight pause on posting, because I'm like, it just doesn't feel good to create from fear anymore. I can't just do this anymore on like autopilot of posting and just feeling like this validation when I get the likes and the comments. And also another thing happened that I really noticed with my launch of Tarot Intuition Mastery. I ended up feeling bitter when people were not signing up, because I'm giving away all of this free content all the time, like every single day. Now, is that other people's fault? And it's not about blame, but it really comes back to me and looking at like, well, if you were really giving out of love, pure love, you would not expect anything in return. That's unconditional love for my people, for what I do, right? For myself. Giving this content out of pure love. That has no expectations. And again, it has nothing to prove. And that's why it's so easy for me to tell friends and other people like, oh my God, you just don't, it doesn't matter about the likes and the comments. Are you doing it because you love it? It's easy for me to say, but again, this lesson's coming around for me so I can fully embody these lessons for myself. And I might start posting things that I know are not going to get 1,000 likes, but it's because it's actually more in alignment of what I'm being called to share to help the people that really want to pay attention to what I'm posting. And so I felt bitter when I put Tim out and people were not signing up because I did have an underlying expectation from what I've been giving and from showing up, even posting so vulnerably. And like I've cried on my Instagram live to connect with people, but there might have been a part of me that did that so people can like, you know, there might have been an underlying motive. And I'm not saying 100% of me was highly motivated by people signing up for Tim, but it started to creep up in number of like 20% of me, 30% of me, 40% of me, 50% of me, 60%. Like it was creeping and I felt it. It felt like constriction because as we learn in Tarot Intuition Mastery, we're going to talk about in this next live call, the feeling of an intuitive yes versus an intuitive no. A yes is expansive. But as I've been posting, as I've been talking about Tarot Intuition Mastery, I feel constricted. And what does that mean? I'm not actually following my intuition when I'm talking about it. And I'm basing what I put out there, or I'm creating from a fear-based place that actually causes constriction in me. And that's why it was like, it was causing us some sort of burnout, but not in a way that I had thought burnout was, which was, I'm just so tired. It was more of just like, I don't want to, or I don't feel like it, or it doesn't feel that good. You know what I mean? So anyways, that was a big vulnerable share for me. And I'm just sharing this like honestly from love, because I know that social media is a big one for a lot of us, but it really helped me, like that experience helped me ask myself, am I still lovable or valid if I'm not being paid from people? You know, if I'm not making a certain money off of these people that watch me all the time, like, am I still worthy? Am I still valid? Am I still a leader? Am I still a business owner? And these are things that have come up for a reason so I can really step into my role as a business owner and as someone who is meant to do big things on this planet. So thanks for letting me share that. One more example is my brother's cancer diagnosis. The pattern from my past came up mixed with my spiritual ego of like being pretty strong and like spiritual about the whole experience came into play like immediately. And I shared on the other episode, I think it was the symbols, signs, symbols, synchronicities episode about the pain in my chest. So definitely listen to that if you haven't. And because of me not fully processing my own stuff as far as what was coming up about that, the pattern from my past mixed with my spiritual ego came out to play. Being the rock, being awakened, seeing cancer as a gift, and all these things. It's like, yeah, that's true. But my brother, who's 36 years old, was just diagnosed with cancer. I'm going to try not to get emotional. But when my human doesn't have the opportunity to process that, and I just immediately go to the spiritual, like, it's okay, like this is all happening for a reason, and all it's like bypassing. And it was immediately my go-to, and that really helped cause that pain in my chest. And I have, especially when he started treatment just the other day, he started chemo. that really, really hit me. And I just let myself not talk to anyone all day and cry all day. I just let myself. And it's not that I haven't been emotional about it, but I just still was in my mind, my ego, masking the deep rawness that my human wanted to feel with, it's all for a reason, it's all happening for us. Which, yes, that's true. That's true. Absolutely. But my human is still a human. And I need to experience those emotions. And then I also had judgment towards the medical system that was really coming up strong because of everything I've learned about the whole, 2020 stuff and pharmaceuticals and big pharma, all this. And a big part of me just immediately felt so much judgment. And I just felt, and the judgment was masking the fear. And this came up through this pain in my chest. I had to reflect on what was going on. I had a deep fear that my brother was choosing the wrong path to heal because of everything I've learned. And that's the thing, is when we go through these awakenings, we learn so much, but that doesn't mean we need to project onto these people. And I actually was aware of that. And I even said, I said this, I don't want to project my idea of what is right onto my brother, but deep inside, I felt that it was wrong of what he was choosing because of what I've learned and my tainted feeling towards the medical system. And so I had fear. I had so much fear, but I didn't deal with that fear head on because of all of these ideas about myself and these identities of who I am and a leader. And it's helped me bring me back to my humanity. And we really are seeing now that my brother's diagnosis has been one of the biggest blessings for our family. Him and I, okay, I'll be done crying in a second. Him and I, we say I love you now to each other. And we just haven't. We haven't. It's like a grown adult woman, a grown adult man. I don't know, it was just never something we really said to each other. But now we do. Okay, I'm done crying now. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My spiritual ego is breaking. Thank you. Okay. So, those are just a couple examples that have come up literally within the past couple of weeks in my life of the social media stuff, my course, and my brother being diagnosed with lymphoma. Man, so many blessings that come through these lessons when we really allow them to be lessons and not just something that we repress because we've been there, we've done that, we're above that, whatever, right? That holds us back from our growth. Okay. All right. Coming back here. How do we come back to love and to true light? Number 1, let yourself be human again. Cry. As I am right now, 3333. It was just confirmation. 33 is a mastery. It's some sort of mastery number. And I love how I'm talking about crying and let yourself be human. And that's the thing, is becoming a master is actually welcoming our human nature and being okay with that. And beyond being okay with that, it's loving that. So cry, be unsure. Don't post. Stop performing. It doesn't have to be a performance if you're putting it out online. And I will say I am very authentic with the way that I show up a lot of the time. And people love that about me. And that's also why I get a lot of engagement. And people tell me that all the time. You give me permission to be my authentic, weird self because you are being that. But the thing is, there's layers to that. And there's still some performance on my end of numbers and this and that and how many likes, It's so easy to get caught up in. So now this is just a reminder for all of us. How much are we posting for performance versus gifting people a piece of your authenticity and literally giving an offering, like a prayer, right? Not saying everything has to be like super spiritual that you post, but you know what I'm saying? Offering it as though it is a true offer from your authentic heart and your soul. Okay, number 2 is speak your truth without needing to sound enlightened. Okay? Saying I don't know, saying I'm hurting, saying this is messy or I'm messy or whatever. And it's all good. It's all good because when you're trying to be perfect, you're striving to be perfect, no one can relate to perfection because no one actually is. We're human. Number 3, ask, is this coming from love or control? Love does not grip or prove, it just is. Number 4 is come back to service, not identity, what I was just talking about. You don't have to be the guide to offer something beautiful. Maybe you can offer something as far as what you just learned as a student of life. That is just as valuable, sometimes more valuable, because people relate to that even more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, practice radical humility. What about I try to be like this. I don't have all the answers. And that doesn't make me any less connected because nobody has all the answers. And again, that's more relatable than I have all the answers. It's just not relatable. Number 6 is hold yourself through the bitterness. And that's usually the moment your soul is asking for softness and self-acceptance, not external validation. So as soon as you feel that bitterness come on, how can you soften and accept whatever it is that's coming up? Because usually, I would say all of the time, when there's something that's coming up in you that doesn't feel like an authentic, like pure, creative source energy, and it's a trigger or it's a bitterness, that is a part of you that just wants more acceptance. That's a part of your human self that needs more love. And the last one here, number 7, is let your ego rest. It's not bad. It just needs to know that you are safe without the mask. The most powerful version of you is not the most impressive. It is the most true. That's why there's now this like craving for authenticity. And I talked about this in my class, Visibility Codes. People are now really seeing creators on TikTok showing up in their sweats and their messy bun, no makeup. They're just sharing vulnerably and they have millions of likes. And it's because of the way that we are craving for true connection these days. So when you're showing up as that, you will actually be magnetic, but you can't let that get the best of you. Again, that's my journey. So if any of this resonated, just know you are not broken. Obviously, you're not behind. You're just evolving. We are evolving together, always. And the more you let yourself be real, not performative, not perfect, the more magnetic and powerful you actually become. So, if you have any thoughts about this episode, if it resonated with you, if whatever it is, comment below, share it with a friend, share it on your social media. That would just mean the world to me because I spent so long making these episodes. I got to delete that hour-long one now. Not just because I spent a long time, but because this is an important message for us all to hear. And I will listen to this back and hear it again. It hits differently when I'm like listening to it back versus just recording it. And yeah, I still have spots open for Tarot Intuition Mastery this round. Right now, I'm recording this on Saturday, March 29th, and our first live class is April 3rd. So if you are interested in getting into that live class with us, you can still join. I'll put the link below. I also, next week, I opened up some spots for private readings. I have not done just private readings. They're 30-minute sessions in a very long time at this price point. And I don't know, I felt called to do that. And I just wanted to offer some support in a way that was a little more accessible, because for an hour soul alignment session with me, it is $385. For these one-on-one tarot readings, 30 minutes on Zoom, it's $177 USD. And I do have an option for emailed readings for $111 at this time. That could change. I don't know when you're listening to this. If it's 5 years from now, I might not be doing tarot readings anymore. You'll just have to send me an email. Anyways, I'm hearing ringing in my ears. It is time to wrap up. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. I see the real you. And the more that you see the real you as well, you'll see others as their real selves. And that's when you can see more of that false light projection and not take it personal. It's not about rising above, but it's about moving through that, having your own experience with that, and then loving people as far as where they are on their own path and their own journey, because not everyone is exactly at the same level, and it's not about being above or below. It's just about really embodying that Jesus Christ lesson of forgiveness and unconditional love, no matter where people are on their journey. So, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. You can DM me. Again, I would love for you to share this episode if it resonated. And I'm excited to get an episode out that's not so all over the place like I was yesterday. And it still was a little long. It's about 40 minutes, a little over 40 minutes, but it's not an hour. And before I go on too many tangents as I end, I just want to say I love you. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for supporting me. And thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable with you and sharing my experience with all of this that is happening in my world. So until next time, I love you so much. Bye-bye.